Although it is an optional battle with a water cooler, it might be one of the most important encounters that we've had in Deltarune so far. Preposterous, you say? At first I might have agreed with you, but something about this silly battle with an office naiad stuck with me, and I couldn't help but mull over what the heck Toby Fox was possibly doing with it. And suddenly, after a little dive into history and a seemingly disconnected observation about the Fourth Dark World, I was hurled down the proverbial rabbit hole, and I need to share that with you! A treacherous journey that revealed the nature of shipping in Deltarune, deaths haunting the narrative since Chapter 1, and a hint at a character we've yet to meet. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, a channel for novice authors by novice authors, and because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And I needed to share this all with you because either Toby Fox is a mad genius, or I'm just going mad myself. But that slender water sprite lording it over all the cup tins is the key to understanding so much of what is going on in Deltarune. Well, possibly. Okay, let's first ground ourselves in the reality of the moment before skipping down into Toby's Wonderland. You can encounter Miss Mizzle in the Dark Sanctuary's Western Tower when you are trying to get all of the musical notes to access Gerson's axe, the Justice Axe. Leading up to the encounter, you have already met plenty of Mizzles, I assure you. The cute little water sprites singing all over the place. And then, of course, there's the Cuptins, who see the Mizzles as princesses to woo with their mighty deeds and knightly words. Miss Mizzle is one Mizzle who has taken all of this to heart, all of the Cuptins' words and deeds, and she's let them get to her head. And thus she has Delta-volved from a simple Mizzle into Miss Mizzle. The battle with her is a curious one because you have loads of different options that will all elicit varying outcomes and dialogue options as it plays out. In all cases, she waxes eloquent and pedantic, acting like a royal princess, bestowing her favor and presence upon you. And if you overdo it in your acting, you lose her favor and she begins calling you disgusting. Meaning you might miss something interesting in all of this. Overall, it's a curious encounter that almost rises to the level of a mini-boss, though nothing like what we've encountered with Jackenstein or Birdly back in Chapter 2, or even our first boss with Tenna in Chapter 3. And yet, it's something unique. It feels like there's a lot of effort going into just this one silly encounter in culmination of the princess in her tower trope that is sprinkled throughout Chapter 4. But Toby is not the kind of guy to just sit back and casually toss out old tropes and just let them stand as they are. There's usually a hidden meaning or twist that feeds into his trollish tendencies. So I've been mulling this battle over since I played it, wondering if there's anything deeper to it, and the journey began with revisiting the medieval relationship between knights and fair ladies. Contrary to popular belief, Chaucer's fan fictions of King Arthur, and most movies that you've seen on the subject, the old school dynamic between chivalrous knights and those fair maidens was anything but appropriate in the year of Google's YouTube 2025. And yet, again, contrary to what college professors and historical revisionists will claim, whilst foaming from the mouth, noble women in medieval Europe had some very dominant soft power, and they molded chivalry into what we think it is today. Noble ladies knew that they were dealing with brutes whom their lords and husbands had to rely on to defend against enemies and keep those dangerous peasants in line.
What? I told you, we're an anarcho-syndicalist commune. Strange women lying in ponds, distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. Shut up! Will you shut up? Ah, help! Help! I'm being repressed, bloody peasant! Oh, what?
However, bloodthirsty, murderous knights do not create a safe setting for women locked in their towers to do embroidery and compose chaste poetry. Nay, it is a situation ripe for abuse, flying bodices, and other unmentionables. So the ladies, guardians of Hall and Hearth, placed very particular stipulations on any blood-soaked knight who wanted to be in their presence. They had to show courtesy. They had to know the right words to say, perform certain rites in order to even get close or to interact, and had to adhere to dress and eating codes. By doing so, the women would then allow the courteous knight to approach and share quaint pleasantries. The woman might even offer tokens of affection, signaling to the man that he may proceed to speak with her and get even closer, but only at her wish and in her way.
Speak to me. Speak those words.
Your beauty will be reflected in the power of my arm, the flanks of my horse.
I demand poetry.
Your breast. They're below your throat.
If you would prove your love,
Right.
you should do your worst. Losing is a much keener test of your love. What is your answer?
So, does the armor make you weirder than usual, or... Look, we're like 6 games in. Maybe we should call it tonight.
And thus the complicated rules of modern dating were established, and chivalry, which was originally the art of killing people on horseback, became the code by which men were expected to be courteous and treat women. No, I am not kidding about this. So, knowing that history, it would appear that Toby is just playing into those ridiculous chivalrous interactions between knight and ye fair watery maiden. We might have found Monty Python's watery tart after all in Miss Mizzle. I mean, think about it, it all makes sense. We get from Eram's taunts that Chris was once a knight cutting their way through different dark worlds and adventures, enjoying the thrill of combat. And now they get to practice their flirting to woo a fair darkner over to their side. It simply fits. And yet, that feels like we haven't hit the mark just yet. It's like something more important is going on. Well, when we think about how the fight plays out, maybe there's something more there. Miss Mizzle first appears as a water cooler, easily the most terrifying enemy since Chapter 3. But through the right actions seeking to recruit her, we bring out a lovely naiad and win her love. Wait a second, sounds like someone else we know. In a small, humorous way, the battle against Miss Mizzle is reflective of Chris's relationship with Susie, but this can even be expanded to nearly every other ship the Fawn Gang could explore in-game. The hostilities and misunderstandings at the beginning of Deltarune can come across as daunting and impossible to overcome, but with the right actions, the power of love prevails and you get your preferred couple. Okay, yes, that's a bit of a stretch and I admit that. Honestly, when I got to this point in my own thinking and research, I was about to hang up the whole subject. But then a question came to me. Why do we keep getting so many references to love as the game of Deltarune goes on? Think about it, it's actually growing, the references to affection, to romance, to love, from chapter to chapter. It started coming across as rather peculiar, and sure, we can chalk this up to the prophecy, how love will come to the girl. Or maybe we're slowly getting Deltarune's take on level of violence. It could even be because romance is just becoming a more central theme to the characters in game, as Noelle tries to act on her crush, Chris possibly wants to patch things up between their parents, Asgore and Toriel, and of course all the fantastic cruising moments. But that last option in particular made me reevaluate something. You see, the makeup of each Dark World is largely informed by the Lightner who opens its fountain. The denizens of the Dark World largely have their own lives and stories independent of the Lightner who gave them their fountain, but they are still largely affected by that Lightner and whatever history they've had with the other Lightners. And this is where the rabbit hole sucked me further down than I ever intended to go.
Though I dirtied my fluffy white tail, I've emerged enlightened.
Holding to the theory that Des is the Roaring Knight, and the Roaring Knight is the one who opened the Dark Fountains in chapters 1, 2, and 4, Miss Mizzle's encounter suddenly takes an all new and interesting meaning. Allow me to explain. Although Des is not brought up directly in Chapter 1, we get a subtle and haunting reference to her via Clover, a girl who likes baseball, boys, and music, who is both an extrovert and unsure of herself like an introvert. Something about this smacks of Des, of a far younger Des, once we look back at everything that we've been learning about her, as much as we can learn about her throughout the game. Then, Chapter 2 not only has Noelle talking about Des, but Des is everywhere. From the baseball moon, to the big city that Noelle had wanted to visit, to the video game fights, to even Chris and Queen's interesting relationship. There was definitely something there that allowed Queen to be far more familiar with Chris than with any other character. And yes, she's even in the Ferris wheel and acid tunnel of love. Why is that? Well, hold on a sec, because I'm going to get there, so put a pin in that. Then Chapter 3 was Chris's Dark World, but we get so many references about Des from Tenna, bringing up her music and the videos that she showed Chris, her song about going into the dark, and then the Ribbicks bringing her up as she was a kid with Azrael, their relationship, December 25th being the code to proceed through the game, her guitar pick in the funball machine, a flashback with her in it, and a hint from Tenna that Azrael was developing a crush on her. Even though this isn't her dark world, she is very much on Chris's mind and therefore all over the place. Chapter 4's Dark World, by interesting contrast, has almost none of Des in it, except for the presence of the Roaring Knight and the brief story about the children following the demon's tail into the forest. Sure, we get loads of info on Des in Noelle's house, but it's strange that we don't see more references to her beyond that, especially since she arguably opened this world as the Roaring Knight, unless we consider Miss Mizzle. In the battle with her, depending on the dialogue option you choose, you can get her to talk about a blue flower, someone that you can meet later on. This matches up beautifully with what we know of Chapter 5 and Gerson's own story of the Lord's Hammer, that the next chapter will be about a field of gold and pink flowers burned with the fires of jealousy. So in Chapter 5, probably in Asgore's flower shop, we'll get to meet this blue flower and this is where it all comes together. Possibly. The love has been a part of every Dark World since Chapter 1, but it's been growing in intensity, like a childhood fondness evolving into an awkward crush, desperately hoping and trying to become something more. Via Clover, we get a glimpse of Kid Des, saying she likes boys, music, and sports. The holidays and the dreamers at the time were joined at the hip, and she and Azrael likely did a lot together. Like go to the same fair where Chris scared Noelle by rocking the seats of the Ferris wheel? But what about the older siblings? They were likely doing things that made Des and Azrael realize that they liked each other. Maybe going on their own little adventure through a tunnel or on the Ferris wheel? So, that's something to consider. And thanks to Tenna spilling Azzy's secrets, he stopped playing the Green Lizard in Super Smashing Fighters to start playing the Magician Knight. And who else could be a magical knight that we've seen so far in the game? That's right, Des! And we know, thanks to the Ribbicks, that he and Des were close despite how different they were from each other, even at a young age. In the holiday manor, Chris reveals that Des held on to Azrael's retainer and some of his sweaters. They swapped music too. These are classic signs of young teens liking each other. But it wasn't all straightforward and easy though. Miss Mizzle is just a little Mizzle who has matured ahead of the others and is now playing very hard to get. Typical teenager stuff, just like December Holiday could have been. And if that's the case, we can reasonably play out the significance of a fair maiden taming a daring knight through courtesy as it relates to Des and Azrael. In order to get closer to her, Azrael would have to say the right words, do the right things, go on the right quests, aka dates, and Des would be more than happy to speak and spend time with him. Maybe even give her love in return. Which she already desperately wanted to do, just like Miss Mizzle actually does. The blue flower Miss Mizzle brings up gives us a small clue about what we might encounter regarding Des and her love going forward. You see, Asgore preserved his wedding bouquet, so it stands to reason that he has kept and preserved maybe a few other flowers. For teens, there is a special flower that can be worn to big dances, like the prom. Although we have no references to a prom in Deltarune, we learn from Caddy that Azrael took her to a big dance. Could the blue flower have been intended for asking out Des? Like a knight and his lady exchanging tokens? Did she turn him down? Was she already missing by the time of the big dance? We honestly can't say one way or another, but again, it stands to reason that'll play a role in helping us learn more about what happened in the past and give us further insights into Des and possibly her relationship with Azrael. And that is through the yet to be named blue flower figure who will likely embody something about Des's past. So, there you have it. Miss Mizzle is a representation of Des's advent into puberty and her growing feeling towards boys. The silly fight represents the needlessly overcomplicated way teens go about sharing their feelings, and how a girl might treat the affection shown to her. Now, I will admit again that there's some real stretching going on here with this theory, but it finally feels to me like any importance to Miss Mizzle's encounter has finally been solved. Again, possibly solved. Now, after spending so much time talking about the potential meanings behind a single flirtatious fight with a naiad, an office naiad at that, what kind of lessons can we possibly take away from this video as writers? An important lesson to be learned is that your audience will analyze and assign meaning and value to scenes, themes, and characters that you never intended. And if they do, that's actually not a bad thing most of the time. It means that they're engaging with the story and digging deeper because they like it and want more. You, as the creator, don't have to come up with loads of meaning and importance and stuff it into every single moment of your story. And you'll often create and write scenes and characters that are just fun for you, and that's totally okay. But if you do want to make a scene important, don't overdo it and take a 2x4 to your readers' faces. And that can be difficult to judge. If you have any concerns with those scenes, share them with trusted friends and fellow creators to get feedback, and listen to them. They will help make your story so much stronger and more engaging to your potential audience. Whew! This actually went way longer than I expected it would, so I'm going to call it here, but this is where I want to hear your insights, your thoughts on this fight, and its possible implications in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this crazy video, then please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you'd really like to support the work I do, though, buy a copy of one of my books. Links for them are also in the description. Thank you for joining me on this incredible adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all, watch out for self-important water coolers, and choose.